Hi, and thank you for tuning in again this week to butterfliesdownhomerecipes.com. Today we're going to be making an Asian marinated pork chop with a vegetable fried rice. To start with, we're going to start with our marinade. I've got some scallions that I'm just going to trim up, and we're just going to dice them up. They don't have to be perfect, they're just going to go in the marinade, just more or less for flavoring. Give them a rough little chop. Use both the white part and the green part. It has a lot of flavor in both parts. So we're just going to take these. We're going to add it to our little bowl here that we're going to make our marinade in. And then I have some ginger. Now, I like ginger. If you don't like ginger, you don't have to use it. But you're going to find it very often in Asian foods. It's very fibrous, can be very strong tasting as well. We're just going to take a little bit of it and peel it. You don't want the outer fibrous part. It's not really edible, very chewy, doesn't have a whole lot of flavor either. Okay, so I've got the ginger peeled. Now we're going to use a very fine grater, and we're just going to grate it right into our bowl. You're going to see it kind of almost purees it, basically, with using this fine of a grate. I'm just going to get all that into our bowl. Probably got about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of ginger. Now the remaining part of that ginger, you may not need it right away. Pop it in a little freezer bag and stick it in the freezer. It'll last. Just pull it out whenever you need it, peel a little piece of it, use it, put it back in the freezer. It'll hold up for a really long time. Next we're going to go with some ponzu sauce. This is a citrus soy sauce, basically, is what this is. Has a lot of flavor, and we're going to go with about 2/3 to 3/4 of a cup. This is going to go really well with the ginger and the green onions. Might seem like a lot, but we have 8 chops here that we're marinating. Alright, so that's about 3/4 of a cup. We're going to go ahead and add that into our bowl. Okay. Next we're going to add about 1/4 of a cup of a ginger and garlic stir-fry oil. Okay. You don't need a lot of oil in your marinade. We're going to add that in. And then I have an Asian spice blend. It just has like sesame seeds, garlic, ginger, salt, pepper, a little bit of chili pepper. And we're just going to add about a tablespoon of this. Right into our bowl. And then to give it a little bit of a sweetness, I have some raw unprocessed wildflower honey. And we're just going to eyeball about 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm going to add just a little bit of pepper. And I'm not going to add any salt yet, because that ponzu sauce has a lot of salt in it because it has the soy in there. So we're going to just whisk this together. Incorporate that honey and the ponzu and the oil. Alright. Then we're just going to give it a quick little taste. Perfect. We're gonna take this and we're just gonna drizzle it over our chops. You want to get all that marinade in there with them. You want to make sure that the chops get fully coated in the marinade. So make sure they get in there. Feel free to flip them over. Make sure they're completely covered. Once you get them all covered in the marinade, you can cover it with some aluminum foil and place it in the refrigerator to sit, I would say 2 to 3 hours. You could leave it overnight. It would develop those flavors even more. But if you don't have the time to leave it overnight, just let it sit for 2 to 3 hours in the fridge, and then we'll pull them out and we'll grill them. Okay, so our chops have been marinating now for about 3.5 hours. I've pulled them out to kind of let them come to room temperature because you don't want to put cold meat onto a hot grill. It'll seize up. We're going to go ahead and take a little bit of grapeseed oil and with a brush, just brush our grill so that our chops won't stick. Now grapeseed oil is very mild. It won't change the flavor of your meat, so you can pretty much use it with anything. Now that our grill is good and oiled, you can tell it's nice and hot because it's smoking. We're going to go ahead and get our chops on. You'll notice the coloring of the meat has gotten darker from the soy sauce that's in that marinade. We're just going to go ahead and get these on the grill. And now we're just going to get rid of this. Okay, so now that our chops are on the grill, we're going to go ahead and start prepping some of our stuff for our vegetable fried rice. I've got some jasmine rice already cooking on the stove. You just want to follow the directions on the package. It's usually a 2-to-1 ratio. It's usually 2 parts rice to 1 part water. A little bit of salt. Sometimes you can add butter. I didn't add butter because we're going to be frying it in oil and I just didn't want to overpower it. So I'm going to mince up some garlic and then I'm going to dice up probably about 1/4 of this red onion because it's quite a large onion. Okay, so I've started mincing the garlic here. You want to try to get it as small as you possibly can. Because it's going in a stir fry, and stir fry doesn't really cook for very long, and it cooks at kind of a high temperature. And you don't want the garlic to burn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of salt to the top of the garlic, and this is just going to help break down that garlic and almost turn it into a paste. The salt acts as an abrasive. Okay, so now I'm going to quarter this red onion. I just like to use the red onion in my stir fry because it gives it a nice little color. I don't like a very bland stir fry in color-wise. Just gonna give that a quick wipe. Now, a little trick for you. If you leave the end of your onion on, it'll keep it together for you while you're cutting it. And it'll make it so much easier. And I'm just gonna put this in some thin little slices.
Go.
And then I'm going to slice it the other direction. And now that we've done that, we can go ahead and cut off our end. And our onion will just separate. And then you get these nice little onion strips. I'm just going to set that aside with our garlic. I'm going to go ahead and check our chops here. I'm just going to go ahead and give those a flip. They're getting nice and caramelized. Beautiful grill marks on there. And don't worry if they stick just a little bit. It just means that those chops aren't quite ready to turn yet. When they're ready to turn, they'll unstick themselves. Okay, so now our chops have only been flipped over for about a minute or two. We're just going to take them off and we're going to finish them in the oven. This way we can get started on our fried rice, and by the time the chops are ready, our fried rice will be done. These will only need a couple of minutes in a 350-degree oven to finish off. Okay, so now we've got our pan heating up. I'm going to add a little bit of the ginger and garlic oil that we used earlier for our marinade. Just a couple of tablespoons. And you just want to swirl that around in your pan. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and get that red onion that we chopped up and get that in our pan. While the onions start to cook, I'm going to go ahead and scramble 2 eggs. Now you can scramble them as you throw them into the pan, but I prefer to scramble them ahead of time. It just makes it go a little easier. It doesn't have to be a perfect scramble, just kind of break up those yolks. Okay? And then we're just going to get these onions moving around a little bit. You just want to let these cook for just a minute. Okay, so now these are cooking a little bit. The pan's nice and hot. I'm going to go ahead and throw in my eggs and get those kind of scrambled up in there. You want to keep everything moving. You want that egg to kind of break down into smaller pieces, because you want it to spread all the way throughout the rice. You don't want big chunks of scrambled eggs. You notice I have not put my garlic in yet, and that's because I don't want it to burn. These eggs are almost ready. And then we're going to start adding in some more vegetables. Okay, so our eggs are pretty much cooked now. We're going to go ahead and add an entire bag of a spring mixed vegetable. I like to use this. It's got the broccoli, carrots, squash. We're just going to dump that whole thing in there. This is not your typical stir-fried rice. to that, we're going to add about half a teaspoon of onion powder. Okay. And about a half a teaspoon of celery salt. I like to use the celery salt. It just gives it another dimension of flavor. Now, if you don't want to use celery salt, you could also use celery seed, but I'm not going to add any other salt to this other than the little bit of salt that's in the soy sauce. And you could also use a low sodium soy sauce. So we're going to stir that in, and then we're going to put in some shelled edamame. I like to use edamame instead of peas. I'm going to use about half the bag of edamame. Going to give this a stir, get that all mixed through. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and add some soy sauce. Nice, good helping of soy. This is going to help to flavor those vegetables, and it's almost going to steam them a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. And then we're going to add our garlic. I'm just going to give that a stir. Okay, so our vegetables are nice and hot now. There is a little bit of liquid in the pan, but don't worry about that. That's just going to help keep that rice nice and moist. This isn't your typical stir-fry rice. It's not going to be dry and all of that. This right here is just some jasmine rice that I've pre-cooked. A little bit of salt and pepper in there. And that's it. No butter. We're just going to go ahead and add all of this into our pan. I used a cup and a half of jasmine rice and 3 cups of water. I like to use jasmine rice. It has a very floral flavor, very aromatic. Okay. And then we're just going to get this mixed in. You're going to see that rice is going to start to absorb all those juices from the vegetables and that soy sauce, and spices that we put in there, the garlic, the onion powder. I think it actually needs just a little more soy sauce. You want it a little darker in color than what we have right now. So we're going to splash on a little more. We're going to give this a stir. This smells so delicious. Okay. I added just a little bit more soy sauce to this. Just because it wasn't quite dark enough. I'm going to add a little more pepper. I want to have a little kick in there. That rice is just about finished. Okay. Beautiful. Look at all those beautiful colors in that rice. All right, so we're going to shut this off. And I'm going to go check on our pork chops and see how they're doing. Okay, so our chops are done. They look absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these. Put it on our plate. Get us a nice helping of this vegetable fried rice. Try to get lots of those veggies. We're going to give this a taste. Has that fried rice flavor with the soy sauce and the garlic, but it's still nice and moist, not dried out like what you would get at the takeout restaurant. Now we're going to cut into this chop. You can see it's nice and white. Beautiful grill marks on it, but then we finished it off in the oven. That soy sauce and that ginger really pop. And then you've got that little bit of a citrus aspect from the ponzu sauce. Absolutely delicious. I can't think of anything better that I'd like to have for a Chinese dish than what I've got right here. Thank you again for tuning in to butterfliesdownhomerecipes.com. I hope that you'll continue to keep tuning in. We will be posting new videos every Sunday, so please check back for our new videos. And hope you keep coming back.